Good morning. Thank you for joining today's Manufacturing and International Trade Committee of HALI meeting. Thank you for joining today. I appreciate it. I hope everyone is well and safety, and thank you again for your time and interest. Today we'll talk about doing business with Brazil, introductions to economy, opportunities, business customs, and we'll learn from experts today. We have a panel and we have many different things to learn about doing business with Brazil. My name is Kevin Devecioglu. I am a co-chairman of Manufacturing and International Trade Committee of HALI. I also have my colleague with me, our co-chair, Ron Loveland. So together we run our activities, as you know. So we are happy to be with you today. So a little bit of information about our committee. Our mission is to basically help manufacturers thrive in Long Island area. For this purpose, we organize events and activities, as you may know. So before pandemic, we had a lot of on-site meetings, such as factory tours, as well as educational events and seminars, as well as panel discussions, as you may remember. We also have a website I shared on the screen, so you can learn more about our committee and our activities. Just to refresh your mind, in previous months, as well as last year, we had a lot of educational, international trade-related activities and events. We talked about how to do business with Vietnam last year, for example. It was very educational. We talked about how to do business with China, opportunities, introductions to economy and business customs. Also, we talk about international standards and fundamentals of ISO 9001. That was one of the subjects that we covered last year. This year, especially actually last month, we talked about how to do business with France. It was also very informative. We also had a panel discussion in that sense, and we learned about France, its economy, opportunities, and how to do business in terms of selling to France and buying from France in terms of importation and exportation. So it was actually very informative. Also, just so you know, we have a LinkedIn group. This group is designed to help you share information and learn about our activities as our committee moving forward. So we invite you to join our LinkedIn group when you have a chance. Great, so that's our brief introduction. So I'd like to invite Tony Joy from HALI, and we'd like to learn about coming events, updates, and announcements from Tony Joy. Tony Joy, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks, Kevin. And again, thank you so much to Kevin and to Ron, our two co-chairs, for all of the wonderful programs that they put on for our Manufacturing and International Trade Committee. So just a couple updates I wanted to share in regards to what the HIL has been doing, as well as some programs I'd like to invite you to this morning. So recently, actually earlier this week, we teamed up with Ignite Long Island and Suffolk County Executive Steve Ballone to host a 3-day COVID vaccine effort for Long Island's industrial workforce. So it was right in the park here. They were able to administer a number of vaccinations in the first round. I know that we'll also be looking at coordinating for the next phase of that coming soon. So really trying to make that effort. I know that Ron actually, I believe, was part of that conversation, and it was part of an overall Give Your Health a Shot campaign that we're working on, and continuing to do that, and continuing to let our members know and the Long Island business community know when opportunities such as this are presented and available to them. So continue to keep an eye out for emails such as that. Anything on our social media pages, you'll be able to kind of be aware as well. So we're really just happy to be able to provide that type of collaborative effort with those two other organizations, and be able to get that out to the community, the business community. So as far as some of our upcoming program, on the 23rd, we have Long Island Innovation Park at Hop Hog update. So you'll hear from some of our local governing officials, as well as some business officials in regards to some updates about the park. what they, foreseeable future, things that have been changing, going on. We have a really nice panel on for that, and we'll also have opening remarks from Suffolk County Executive Steve Ballone for that. Later that day, we do have our networking and trivia with this month's theme movies. So if you just want to have a nice casual conversation with other members or just kind of make a nice connection, that's going to be at 3:30 on the 23rd as well. And then we do have a new prospective member information meeting coming on the 28th. So if you are a new member or somebody who's interested in becoming a member, this would be a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about the HIA-LI. And then just to conclude the month of April, we do have leading a remote workforce through the pandemic and beyond. So another really great panel discussion, just highlighting some of the strategies and ways in which you can really engage your workforce during these remote scenarios and work scenarios that are going on. Lastly, I did want to also invite anybody to submit. We are accepting our Business Achievement Award application nominations. So if you are interested, our Business Achievement Awards are kind of like the Oscars of Long Island business. So there's a judging opportunity. You fill out a form. There's judges who select who would be somebody in that category that might really stands out, whether it's something you've been doing in your business or in the community, things like that. So if you're interested and want to learn more and submit your application for that, please reach out to me as well, and we'd love to have that. And that event's going to be in September. So we're accepting those nominations now. But yeah, so any information, any question you have, please feel free to reach out to me. And thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back to Kevin.
Tony Joy, thank you very much, as always. Appreciate it. So many things happening at HILI. So thank you for keeping us updated. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Ran, I see you are also connected. I know we have also meetings coming up. Anything you'd like to share at the moment?
Sure. We have a really exciting Robotics Day coming up the end of April. That's April 29th. Oerlikon Metco is going to open up their facility and invite in. We have room for 20 manufacturers. So manufacturers are going to get first dibs on this meeting. They're going to be talking about robots. We're going to have show them the cobots, collaborative robots, some of the automation work they're doing. So a lot of great work is going on there. And then on May the 5th, we're going to have a joint meeting with the technology group, and we're going to talk about what technologies you need to be considering when you're setting up a new facility. I know there's quite a few companies here that are setting up new facilities. Contract Pharmacol, for instance, is putting a new facility in place, and you got to think about what's the new technologies they need to have in place, infrastructure in place. So we're going to have a panel also talking on May the 5th. So I hope you can join us.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Yes. So next month also will be really active for our committee, especially being with technology committee is really exciting. There are many things that manufacturers can learn about technology, understand about the latest events and trends, especially in technology. So it's going to be an important joint committee meeting for us. So we are definitely looking forward to it, especially nowadays due to pandemic. There is a lot of remote work going on, and we need technology more than before. And why don't we just apply it also in manufacturing field to be more productive and efficient in our workplace? So we'll discuss all these during the next month's joint committee meeting with technology committee and with us, with manufacturing and international trade committee, both under HILI roof. Okay, great. So let me introduce our panel as a start so that we can get started. Today we'll talk about doing business with Brazil. Brazil is the largest economy in South America. So there are many things that we love to learn about Brazil, its economy, opportunities, business customs, and how we can do business with France in terms of importation and exportation. So that is why we have actually an expert panel with us together. and we'll basically learn from them as to these subjects in terms of the economy of Brazil, how we can do business with Brazil, and other informative subjects. So let me introduce our panelists first of all before we get started, and then we'll just jump into the subject matter. We have Marisa Tras-Palacios with us. She is a senior international trade specialist in Long Island, New York office of the U.S. Commercial Services. She helps companies from Nassau and Suffolk counties increase the international sales by entering new global markets in a strategic and targeted manner. She holds a master's degree in international relations and economics from the Johns Hopkins University. We also have Maria Cameron with us. Welcome, Maria. Thank you for joining our panel. Maria Cameron joined Department of Commerce in 1999 and is currently serving as the Deputy Director of the Office of Latin America and the Caribbean in the Global Markets Division of the International Trade Administration. Ms. Cameron and her team cover market access and trade policies issues of importance to U.S. exporters to the region. As part of her portfolio, she leads the U.S.-Brazil Commercial Dialogue, which serves as bilateral cooperative mechanism between the United States and Brazil, focused on growing trade and investment by jointly identifying barriers to trade and developing win-win solutions for both countries. She also counsels U.S. exporters who encounter trade barriers. Prior to taking on the Brazil portfolio, Ms. Cameron covered Peru and Venezuela. Before joining Commerce, Ms. Cameron worked as an associate at Andre Wick and Associates and the Director of Administration at Consumers for World Trade. She has an MA in International Affairs from the American University and bachelor degree in Spanish and Political Science from the University of Northern Iowa. Maria, welcome to our panel. Thank you very much for joining. Appreciate it. Also with us today, we have Brian Tobner from Empire State Development. Brian works with businesses in New York City, Long Island, and across New York State to promote export growth as part of the Global New York Division at New York State Empire State Development. To achieve this Global New York program that provide export market intelligence and distributor searches, as well as grants to offset the cost of eligible trade activities, such as trade show attendance. He directly manages the Global New York Grant Fund, which provides awarded New York State companies a matching grant for eligible export activities. Previously, he worked in Long Island Regional Office and New York City Regional Office of Empire State Development to promote business growth and economic development through the Regional Economic Development Council initiative. Brian has a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the George Washington University and is originally from Long Island. Brian, welcome to our panel. Thank you very much for joining. So why don't we start with Maria and let's learn about Brazil and in terms of economics of Brazil, how the economy is, what type of opportunities and challenges there in that market. So for that, I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll make sure Maria is the presenter. Let me see if, okay. Maria, you can share your screen when you are ready. Also, if you can unmute your microphone, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you everybody for the invitation to speak today. I'm really excited for the opportunity to talk about Brazil. I want to apologize. I'm a bit of a last minute substitute, and so my presentation isn't as polished as I would like. I definitely know the material. I'm just a little bit out of practice. So we'll go through, and I look forward really to taking your questions and having more of a discussion. So with that, we'll start. Well, so I've been working on Brazil. I started working on Brazil in 2008, and I've seen a lot of changes and growth in our relationship with Brazil. And it's really a land of opportunity and challenges. There we go. So first of all, Brazil is a big country. It's the second largest economy in the Western Hemisphere, the ninth largest economy in the world. It's the U.S.'s ninth largest export market, and we have a trade surplus with Brazil. So the common phrase I'm hearing these days now is Brazil is too big to ignore. So it's a really important market and one that everybody should definitely look at when you're looking to export. Brazil has a lot of economic opportunities. There we go. Our U.S. Commercial Service has identified 6 sectors with high export potential: energy, infrastructure, health and medical devices, defense and aviation, as well as information technology, which just pervades through everything. And the services market is also huge: education, franchising, fintech, and once we get through and can travel again, tourism will be a huge opportunity. And I'll add that Brazil's large consumer base and reform-oriented government make it an excellent export market for almost any U.S. product. There's a huge demand for U.S. products in Brazil. Brazil is a lot like the United States. I have another graphic I couldn't quite get to work in this PowerPoint that overlays the continental United States with Brazil, and you can see that we're very much the same size. And like the United States, it's a very diverse country. There are a lot of similarities. For instance, Washington, D.C. and Brasilia are the capital cities where the policies get made. But like New York, Sao Paulo is where the actual business is done. And as you may have heard from my bio, I did my undergraduate at the University of Northern Iowa, where I grew up. And I like to remind people that there's more to the United States than the coast. And I want to remind people that there's a lot to Brazil. The north has major cities and mining and opportunities, and the center has agriculture and livestock and chemical industries, and the south, the northeast, and the southeast. So when you're looking at Brazil and where the opportunities are, you really need to look at the entire country. And really, how do you do that? Well, we're here to serve. Marisol can talk to you about our local services through our over 100 offices throughout the United States. And in Brazil, we have 5 offices. We have, of course, our office in Brasilia and Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, but we also have an office in Recife and in Belo Horizonte. And these offices are staffed not only with U.S. Foreign Commercial Service officers, but also locally engaged staff who are real experts, who are experts in all sorts of sectors and maintain long-term contacts and are really experts. I keep saying experts, but really have a strong in terms of helping U.S. companies identify partners, identify opportunities, and then navigate the complicated aspects of doing business in Brazil. So, where are some of the opportunities? Really anything that you can think of. Civil nuclear, construction, cosmetics, defense, education, environment, franchising. I'm going to go through a couple of these to highlight some of the major opportunities in some of these sectors, but really it's a sampling, and I don't want it to limit what you're thinking about. If it doesn't hit your sector, we should still talk about it because I'm sure there are opportunities. Brazil is experiencing a huge increase in demand across the construction area and infrastructure. Major cities are going through construction booms. There are roads and railroads and a lot of investment going into major infrastructure projects. what you hear the most about in terms of Brazil is Brazil looking for investment. That being said, the opportunities for the U.S. companies, a lot of U.S. companies don't really want to be or aren't interested in being the primary contractor. And if they are, we are definitely there to help through our advocacy center. But where I see real opportunities for U.S. companies are the subcontractors and servicing the major contracts and the supplies in these areas. So this is a huge area of opportunity. Another big area of opportunity in Brazil is the cosmetics sector. I mean, I can't underestimate how important beauty and cosmetics is to Brazil. It's remained strong through every sort of economic downturn. Personal hygiene products, hair care products. We have a fabulous person in Sao Paulo who works in this industry and identifies a lot of opportunities for U.S. companies, both at manufacturers of the actual cosmetics, but then suppliers to major Brazilian cosmetics companies as well. So this is a huge area of opportunity. Kind of going to a completely different industry is the defense industry, and this is one that we have been working really hard to develop for U.S. companies and to foster partnerships between U.S. and Brazilian companies. We have the U.S.-Brazil Defense Industry Dialogue, which is intended really to bring together U.S. and Brazilian companies to work together in this important industry. We do a lot of policy work in this area to build the rapport. Brazil became a major non-NATO ally of the United States in recognition of their commitment to increase defense cooperation. And there are a number of other defense-related agreements that we have been working with Brazil on that pave the way for U.S. companies looking to enter or export in this sector. Of course, a huge area of opportunity, and this is not new, but I think it's gaining more visibility, is in the environmental area. There are opportunities in water and the wastewater sector. I heard recently that 40% of Brazilian water is lost through, and the first thing I thought of was like inefficient pipes and dripping, which is a big part of that, but it's also people stealing the water or tapping into it and then not having to pay for it. And so this creates huge opportunities in terms of flow controls and pipes and valves and backflow prevention valves and all of the really important things that manufacturers make that policy people like me don't really understand. So this is a huge opportunity. And the same in the municipal solid waste sector and of course air pollution control. This sector will be getting a lot more visibility. We will see that through the climate change summit next week, and you see that throughout the U.S. government right now as this is clearly a priority for the Biden administration. But as someone whose job it is to identify export opportunities for U.S. companies, I see this where we really have a leading edge because our companies are the most competitive and our companies have the technology to really be successful. So this is something where I see a lot of growing opportunities for U.S. companies. Another sector where there are a lot of opportunities in Brazil is in franchising. As I said, U.S. companies are really highly desired by the Brazilian consumer. So anything that has a U.S. name to it is really attractive. So this is definitely a sector. I know, as Brazil faces everybody's going through the economic crisis due to COVID, but as things come back, you're going to see an increasing demand for U.S. Franchises in Brazil. Information technology is another area where there's a huge high demand for U.S. Products and services, telecommunications equipment and services, computers, cybersecurity, emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence and IoT, and of course, media and entertainment. There's a huge demand for U.S. companies, for U.S. products in this area. We have, there's a growing demand for U.S. medical devices and medical technology in Brazil. We have a lot of partnerships between U.S. companies and Brazilian companies in Brazil, and it's something that we work a lot on, both in terms of export opportunities and as well as improving the market conditions for U.S. exporters. And I'll get into this a little more when I'm talking about the challenges. But best prospects, of course, are material for health equipment, diagnostics, health IT solutions. There's a big market in Brazil for U.S. technology. Oil and gas. Brazil is Latin America's top oil producer. Brazil owns the largest recoverable ultra deep oil reserves in the world, what we call the pre-salt, the deep pre-salt fields. While this is a huge opportunity for U.S. companies, both in terms of the drilling, but then the supplies and all of the things that go into the oil and gas production, and Brazil is going to become an even more important oil and gas exporter in the coming years, which create a lot of opportunities for all of the U.S. service companies and U.S. producers of the equipment necessary to access these energy resources. Security. Excuse me while I catch up with myself. It's safe to say that security is a big issue in Brazil. Brazil has struggled over the past 20 years to effectively address high levels of crime and violence. And so there's a growing market for U.S. security technologies across a wide range of critical national infrastructure segments, fostering potential growth as they really work to improve the security situation in Brazil. U.S. companies and local partners will find business opportunities in segments such as access control, CCTV, alarm systems, surveillance technology, drug and explosive detectors, metal detectors, fire prevention detector systems, across the whole range. So this is a huge area of opportunity for U.S. companies. Additional industries, the services industry, infrastructure, food and beverage. We kind of covered this in the franchising, but also all of the pieces that go into that, the supplies in terms of the inputs into the food and beverage industry, the bottles, the equipment to manufacture those things are all great opportunities for U.S. companies. So this is just some things that we didn't cover: chemicals, e-commerce, general consumer goods, mining. Brazil has a really strong mining sector. Pharmaceuticals, space. We've been doing a lot of work with Brazil on space and the technologies that go into developing a space program. Brazil has a launch site that is located in a really good place because it's close to the equator, and so it's a really attractive launch site that they're working to develop that has a lot of U.S. companies really excited about getting involved in. But now, and I will apologize because this is my specialty, and that is that Maricel and her team work on opportunities, and then I deal with problems. So this is my strength, and it's a little bit of my skewed perspective. And doing business in Brazil is hard, and anybody that tells you otherwise is wrong. And this slide, I think, it's a little bit old, but it's still accurate. And you know, The Economist, Brazil Takes Off, was from about the time, I think it's a little small, but it's 2008, 2009 when I started working on Brazil, and everybody was really excited. And then a number of years later, has Brazil blown it? And I think if we were looking at the third one, you might see the trajectory going. I mean, pre-COVID, things were definitely on the upswing again. But no matter what, doing business in Brazil requires a lot of preparation and a lot of homework. And it would be irresponsible of me to talk about the opportunities without talking about the challenges. So just without being too negative, doing business in Brazil is complex. It requires an intimate knowledge of local business environment. It requires a lot of time doing your homework and identifying local distributors, legal representation, accounting. And that's why it's really important to work with us both in our local offices in Long Island, as well as our offices in Brazil. And that's what our job is to help you be successful through these challenges. But it's not something, this is not a place where you're going to have quick wins. It's a place where you're going to invest time and see things over the long haul. A little bit more about the challenges. Brazil had been improving, but recently had slid back a little bit. They're ranked 124 out of 190 countries in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business report. It takes 17 days to start a business, which ranks them at 138. A key one is how many hours it takes to pay the taxes. And companies will talk about how many people they hire just to do their taxes correctly. And given that today is April 14th, I know the deadline's been extended, but everybody is still thinking about tomorrow's, the April 15th deadline for our own taxes. The Brazilian system is far more complex. And this is something that the Bolsonaro administration had planned on taking on, which was tax reform. But the pandemic has slowed things down, although they do remain committed to paying it, to improving the tax system and tax reform. But that's complex even in the best of times. Trading across borders, which are customs issues, Brazil is now ranked 108 out of 190 countries, but they've really improved, and this is something that we've spent a lot of time working with Brazil on, and there's a real desire on the part of the Brazilians to improve their customs system, because it doesn't do you any good if you sell them something and then it gets stuck at the border and you can't get it to your customer. So this is something we've been working a lot on. Brazil has high tariffs. There's no way around it. But again, with the economic reforms, Brazil has been taking a lot of steps to lower tariffs, and you will see recently Brazil lowered their tariffs by 10% on about 1,500 consumer goods. So it's something that they're working on. The problem is that within the World Trade Organization, Brazil has what they call a bound rate. So they're committed to, they can raise their tariffs up to 35%. They frequently and regularly reduce them, but it creates a lot of uncertainty for U.S. exporters. So it's hard for any U.S. exporter, not just a U.S. exporter, but it's something to consider. And then something that I work a lot on are the non-tariff barriers, regulations, standards, testing requirements, local content requirements, and of course taxes. So what are we going to do about that? We started with all the opportunities, and then we went into the challenges, and I don't want to turn you off from this market. I just want you to be prepared. And it's important to invest time in developing relationships in Brazil. Be patient and do your homework. Work with us. Work with your office and with our U.S. Commercial Service office in Long Island. Work with Maricel. Work with our team in Brazil. And we will help connect you with trusted custom brokers and freight forwarders and help you find trusted partners so that you can be successful in this market. Finally, and this is what I spend most of my time on, we in Washington and in headquarters work a lot on trying to address the policy challenges. So we work on the long-term aspects of improving the policy environment. We have a CEO forum that includes 12 CEOs from the United States and 12 CEOs from Brazil, and it's chaired by the Secretary of Commerce and the White House and the Brazilian counterpart. I lead the U.S.-Brazil commercial dialogue, where we work on all of those technical issues that make it harder to do business in Brazil. We're working to improve the regulatory environment. We're working with Brazil to improve the regulatory environment. We identify the customs issues. I noticed when you were going through some of the past activities, there was a standards briefing, and Michael Boyles was one of the speakers. And Michael Boyles works very closely with us on standards issues in Brazil. And then we have the U.S.-Brazil Defense Industry Dialogue. And this is just what commerce is doing. So throughout the U.S. government, you have partnerships like this, working with the Brazilians, to improve the policy environment so that it's easier for you to be successful in Brazil. This is long-term, and we are making progress, but it's a lot of work. So with that, I will stop so that other people can speak, and I would be happy to take questions. I want to thank everybody for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much for the informative, educational presentation. Much appreciated. We have a Q&A session right after Brian's presentation, and we have some questions that we like to ask you, if that's okay, Maria. So let me share.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate it. Thank you. A great presentation, very informative. So let me share my screen. Okay, great. So now I'd like to invite Brian from Empire State Development, and let's learn about resources available from New York State, also Empire State's take as to Brazilian market and resources available. So for that, I like to stop sharing my screen. I like to invite Brian to our virtual stage. Let me see. Okay, so I need to make sure Brian is the presenter. Okay, Brian, floor is yours. Thank you very much.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Kevin. Okay, let's just get this going.
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right.
Looks good.
Well, all right, perfect. Well, thank you again for having me, inviting me to present to you all this morning about the export opportunities that Global New York can provide to Long Island and New York State businesses. So as Kevin was mentioning, I'm part of the Global New York division at Empire State Development. And what Global New York is, we have a mission to promote competitiveness and foster economic activity across New York State by helping small businesses to export and increase their export sales through goods and services. Under the Global New York banner, we work with to attract international investment as well. So we have a dual mission of export promotion as well as foreign direct investment attraction. And we consider ourselves a one-stop shop for export information for New York State companies. To that end, we have a network of foreign offices that we contract with. These are offices that I'll mention shortly through one of our programs you can access to learn more about the countries and the markets within either the countries or the regions that we have coverage in. The markets that we cover currently, Canada, Mexico. We do also have representation in Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and Peru. For Europe, we have coverage in a London office that covers the UK and Europe for us. So we are covered with Brexit for any companies that are looking to export to the UK. We have an office in Israel. We have an office in South Africa that covers a lot of sub-Saharan Africa for us as well, and also an office in India and China. So for these markets, if you're interested in exporting to them, again, especially including Brazil for the topic today, we can work with you through our foreign office to connect you some information about the markets. So just to start off a little bit about some export information and reasons to export. So one of the chief reasons that although the United States has a very strong market domestically, 95% of the world's population does reside outside the United States, and 70% of the world's purchasing power is outside the United States. So if you're able to tap into that market, your business will be stronger for it. Trade represents a majority of the global economy. And then companies that are able to export are able to grow faster, having greater sales numbers, job creation rates, and employee earnings compared to non-exporters. And unfortunately, only 1% of U.S. small businesses export, or approximately that. So there's a great opportunity for New York State and United States exporters to enter markets. As Maria was mentioning, countries do have a strong appetite for U.S. products, and especially for New York with our recognition for quality products. And just to mention here too, New York State does rank third in exporting in the United States, coming behind Texas and California. So we are present around the world, but we're always looking to increase that with more companies beginning their exporting. So what I'll get into now is our programs. We have 3 different programs we can offer to New York State businesses. The first one I'll get into is our Export Marketing Assistance Service, EMAS program. So this is a no-cost service that we're able to offer New York State businesses. Companies are able to work directly with our foreign office directors in those markets that I showed you just a moment ago. So if you are interested in exporting to Brazil, say, then you could complete an application for EMAS. You check off the Brazil market, and then we'll connect you with our foreign office director there to provide you with a market intelligence report, as well as a list of reputable distributors that a company can work from as a good list to start identifying distributors and also sales agents in the market, so you can feel comfortable with that list. It is up to you, to the individual company, to identify which distributor you'd like to work with and make sure that they are a right fit for you, but you'll have a good place to start from. So for the eligibility for EMAS, you must be a New York State company, at least 1 year in business and viable to export, so you have the capacity. 500 employees or less, and 51% of your product value is added in New York State. So you could have operations, somewhere else in the world or somewhere else in the country, but at least 51% of your product value would have to be added in New York State, or the services would have to be completed in New York State. And we do have an online application you can go to. I'll just mention our website now, global.ny.gov. You can find out all the information about our programs and take a look if you'd like to right now as well, even global.ny.gov. That's the fastest way to get to our website. And this is just an example of what the online EMAS application will look like. It's a fairly short application. And if you do have any questions, you can always contact me. I'll be your point person for any Long Island or New York City companies if you have questions about our applications or the programs. And for the State Trade Expansion Program, the second program I'll talk about, this is a federally funded program that New York State applies for either every year or 2 years, depending on the availability from the federal government. It was started under the Obama administration, and thankfully it's been continuing over the years. Currently, New York State has several rounds of STEP funding available. Currently, through these STEP rounds, about $13,000 in grants are eligible per company per round. So we have a Step 7 round, a Step 8 round, and a Step 9 round at the moment. And within those rounds, you can apply for different export activities, and it's an individual basket of funding. So you could apply for funding through Step 8 and Step 9, and that would be separate baskets of funding, and you can apply for a variety of different activities. We currently have a significant amount of funds we're able to offer New York State businesses for a number of different eligible export activities, and this is a reimbursement program. So once you complete an eligible export activity and document that fact, providing your receipts, proof of payment, and purchases, then we'd be able to send out a check for the reimbursable amount. What we're able to provide funding for through the STEP program, I'm using Step 8. as an example here. We're able to provide for global New York foreign-led trade missions. We did that more in the past, and we're looking forward to doing that again more in the future once everything begins opening again with the vaccination program rolling out and hopefully COVID subsiding in the future. But currently, we're leading companies on the Hanover Messe trade show. This is an all-digital show. It's happening this week. And in the past, we've done other physical trade shows. We've led companies to, in the past, as well as lead companies on trade missions. We can provide grants for those kind of programs. Financial assistance work for travel. Once you complete the EMAS program, if you do want to meet with the distributor in person, and say fly over to Brazil, Sao Paulo, and meet with the distributor, then you're able to do that through that item. Subscription services offered by U.S. Department of Commerce. Marisol will get into the different offerings shortly from the U.S. Department of Commerce. Through the STEP program, we are able to offset some of those costs for New York State companies, so make it a little bit more affordable for some businesses depending on the activity. So definitely recommend taking a look at STEP if you're going to be looking into doing some of the U.S. Department of Commerce export assistance programs. And then I'll just get to the export training workshops. If there is an export training workshop, digital or on Long Island, that you'd like to attend to learn more about regulation or export law or about an individual market that you're interested in exporting to, we can offset the cost of an export training workshop up to $1,750 here. And you'll see that the maximum grant we can award is different depending on the activity. And it would either be this amount or 70% of the total project cost, whichever is less. So for an international qualified domestic trade exhibit, this used to be our most popular product. And hopefully, again, we'll see more of the companies going to physical trade shows in the future. For domestic shows, just have to prove and demonstrate that there's a significant international audience or international buyers that will be at a show that's going to be in the U.S., and then we could assist you with that as well. Website content, foreign translation. If you're going to be modifying your website or building a separate website, say for Brazilian Portuguese in this case, you're able to work with us to accomplish that, so you can translate the site and adjust it so it's a good fit for the market. Development of an international marketing campaign. If you decide that you wanted to do a marketing campaign, that could be a print advertisement or banner advertisements online or other online publication advertisements, that would be something we can work with you through the international marketing campaign. If you have other ideas, we can definitely discuss that with you too for an international marketing campaign. Virtual services. So in light of COVID, if there are going to be any kind of B2B virtual meetings that are established by a third-party organization or other type of virtual events that you'd like to participate in for the purposes of expanding your export sales, that's something we can work with you on as well through that. And then compliance testing. For different markets, you do need to have a compliance test standard completed. For European Union especially, that's a big one. I'm sure for Brazil as well. Have your product to be certified to the standard of the market. So for compliance testing of your product, if you need to get that done, we can reimburse you up to $6,000 or 70%, whichever is less, for that kind of testing. And then eligibility. Business would have to operate in New York State and manufacture, assemble, distribute a product, provide an exportable service in New York State. Businesses in business for at least 1 year, qualify as an eligible small business concern and meet the SBA size standard. That's available on our website as well, global.ny.gov. It's the link to get to the SBA website to verify your eligibility in that way. And then have a product or service, again, eligible for export that contains 51% U.S. content. So as opposed to our programs that are New York State programs, this being a federal program, it can be 51% U.S. content. So you could have 51% combined, say, in New York and New Jersey, and then the remainder could be elsewhere in the world. And then you would be an eligible company under the STEP program in that regard. And with the STEP program, you can go to our website. Again, there's a PDF application you can complete. It's also fairly short. So if you do have any questions, again, I'm sure Kevin will be able to distribute my contact information. Always happy to answer any questions about the programs or the applications. And these are some examples of the export activities that we've led New York State companies on through the STEP program. In 2019, we completed a multi-sector trade mission to Mexico, a multi-sector trade mission to Israel, and the MedTech trade show in China. And then, as I was mentioning, in April, actually this week, is the Digital Hanover Messe trade show, which was going to be a traditional physical trade show in 2020, but that obviously got postponed due to COVID. So now it's all digital, and we do have 13 New York State companies participating in that digital show. So I'll talk about the Global New York the New York Grant Fund program. This is the program that I administer through Global New York. Currently, it is on pause, so I'll just give that caveat off the bat. But fortunately, it does sound like the program is going to be coming back online sometime over the summer, and I'll definitely be sharing that information with Kevin so he can distribute that to you when the program is online, and we can begin taking new applications again. So this is a New York State funded grant program that is similar to STEP, but on a larger scale, also for small and medium-sized businesses, aiming to expand export sales and create new jobs in New York State. So for this program, we look at a number of different export activities similar to STEP. We bundle them all together for one application for a more strategic export program that a company wants to undertake. And the grants are also then larger. So it's a 50-50 matching grant, whereas the STEP program is a 70% reimbursement up to a certain capped amount. This is 50%, ranging from $10,000 for it would be a $20,000 total project cost, up to a $50,000 project or greater for a $25,000 grant award. So if it's a $60,000 project, then we would be able to still do the maximum cap of $25,000, but between $10,000 and $25,000, that would be the 50% cash, the 50% grant that we can provide to a company. So for the eligibility requirement, 51% product value added in New York State, 500 or fewer employees in New York State, and a business for at least a year, and obviously capacity to export as well. This program does extend to not-for-profit organizations too. We were in the process of reworking it before it went on pause, but for the time being, grants are ranging from $10,000 to $50,000 for not-for-profit organizations, economic development organizations, I should specify, that are going to be doing an export project for typically their member companies. This might involve leading member companies on a trade show or doing an export seminar of some kind or workshop for member companies. So that's something to keep in mind. And then with the eligible activities, market customization, trade shows, trade missions, export education events, workshops, product adaptation and product certification, and then for not-for-profits, trade events and trade education. So similar to the STEP program, and a little bit more flexible in some areas as well. But again, for the time being, this program is not available and we wouldn't be able to accept applications, but in the future, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months, maybe a little bit longer, we will, and I'll again let Kevin know when that is available so he can distribute that information, and hopefully we can get some more companies involved in the grant fund program. All right, and that just about wraps up my presentation today. I'd like to thank you again for inviting me and giving me the time and the ability to present this all to you, and very happy to work with any companies that might have questions about our programs and exporting in general. Thank you very much.
Brian, thank you very much for informative presentation as always. Yes, just like you mentioned, as soon as Global New York Grant Fund is available, feel free to let me know. So we'll put the word out and looking forward to it, definitely. Thank you very much. So let's have our Q&A.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yes, anytime, thank you. So let's have our Q&A session. I know you may have some questions. So to our attendees, you can unmute your microphone and you can ask your questions if you like. Also, I have some questions that I like to also share with our panelists in the meantime. For example, one of the questions that I have is to Maria. So what do you think about Brazil's economic recovery from the pandemic will look like? So right now we know that there are a lot of cases in Brazil in terms of COVID-19. So how it's going to be after pandemic in Brazil, you think?
That's a tough question. I think that the Bolsonaro administration is really committed to economic reform that is really important to economic recovery. So I'm optimistic, but it's a long-term optimism because Brazil is really in a difficult position in terms of the pandemic right now. So it's hard to see past that, but I think once we get through that there will definitely be a recovery and opportunities for U.S. companies. It's just going to take some time.
Yes, definitely. Appreciate it. So another question is, for example, do you recommend a small company or a mid-sized company from US to enter into Brazilian market in the near term or midterm, you will say?
So our mission is to support small and medium-sized companies. But having worked on Brazil as long as I have, I think a broad-based recommendation to all U.S. small companies to enter Brazil is irresponsible. It's a really tough market. I think certain niche companies or companies with that kind of expertise can be really successful, but most small and medium-sized companies don't have the resources to become experts. But what they can do is partner and work with other companies that are working in Brazil. So being the supplier, being the subcontractor, so the opportunities are still there, but doing contracts with Brazilian companies requires a lot of homework and knowledge of the tax system and the customs systems and the regulatory systems. So you really have to be prepared. So it's not an easy answer. So you just have to be able to do your homework and be committed to a long-term initiative that could pay off, but recognizing the challenges.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Maria. If there is another questions from our audience, feel free to unmute your microphone and share your questions. In the meantime, I have some other questions. Looks like this question is for Brian. Brian, so in New York State, what type of companies typically apply for the programs that you mentioned in your presentation?
Oh yeah, definitely. So typically we do see manufacturers of physical product, commodities, and other manufactured goods. We are able to provide our programs to service companies as well. So if there's a company that might have a service they'd like to export, in some cases might be an educational service or others, then we'd like to work with you as well. But typically it would be manufactured goods that we largely see.
So speaking of services, so I'd like to also ask you a question. So next month we'll meet with our technology committee of HILI. So it's going to be a joint committee. So I'd like to bring it up. So in terms of technology companies, how they can export their services, for example, with the help of support from Empire State Development, you will say, because technology can be, we can offer services from US to other international markets, for example, or let's say there is a technology, but we built on it as for services, for example, to support it and to customize it, perhaps. These are all services, for instance. So how would we position technology in terms of exportation? I may get this question next month, so I'm preparing myself.
Oh yeah, no, that sounds good, definitely. So the first thing a company could do would be through the EMAS program, that Export Marketing Assistance Service. If they are unsure, they just want to learn more about a market. So say maybe they want to export to Brazil, and maybe they might also be interested in Canada or maybe Europe, maybe the UK and Germany, for instance. If they were looking at those markets, we do have coverage in those markets. So they could complete an EMAS application, and then they'd get a market intelligence report outlining how their product would play in the market, what the competition would be like internally and domestically within say the UK market or the Brazilian market, and if the Foreign Office thinks it would be a good time to begin exporting. And then they'll also get a list of distributors. Distributors might not be as much of a need for an IT company, or maybe a sales agent. I'm sure that would still be helpful, and that's something the Foreign Office can provide for a New York State business through the technology or in the IT industry. And then I'll also just mention that if a company in IT is looking to do a trade show, or maybe a trade show for IT, but a marketing initiative in a foreign market, or some other kind of export activity that might include website translation for their product website, that's something that we can help them with through the STEP or possibly the Global Grant Fund. So there's a number of opportunities, as long as they are doing the service in New York State, that we can discuss with them.
Okay, perfect. And one more question in terms of Empire State Development's services. So how many times can a company apply for a program in a year from the?
Oh yeah. So for the STEP program, it would depend on the STEP year that a company is applying under. So for step 7 or step 8 or step 9, but you could apply multiple times, and those are independent funding opportunities. For the EMAS program, we typically say every 6 months, depending on the company and if they're able to fully utilize the services that we provided them through the EMAS program. But if they've moved through, say, the Brazilian market and maybe the Mexico market, and they want to, in 6 months' time, look at Canada and maybe somewhere in Europe, that's something we could discuss with the company. So I would say at least once or twice a year, depending on the program. And then for STEP, of course, several times.
I appreciate it. Maria, I have one question. In terms of relationship between administrations, between Brazil and US. So we have a new administration in the US right now. So how is the relationship at the moment, or how it will look like moving forward?
So the relationship is, we're still figuring out at the highest level. Brazil is an important partner, and it will be an important partner no matter what. Our secretary is having a phone meeting with her counterpart in a few weeks, and Brazil has been invited to the Climate Change Summit. So I think we're going to have to see how things play out over time, but it's from a pragmatic perspective. We need to work together, and I will tell you that at the working level, we have very long-term, deep relationships where we're working on a lot of these pragmatic issues. So the relationship is stronger and deeper and longer term than any one administration. So the work keeps going.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Is there any questions from our audience at the moment? Feel free to unmute your microphone and ask your questions if you have any. Okay, looks like we covered all the subjects. Well, I'd like to thank our panelists, Maria, Brian, Marissa. Thank you very much for joining. Appreciate it. Thank you for your expertise and sharing your education and information content with us. Thank you very much. So before we end our committee meeting, as we mentioned, I and Ron, we have a joint meeting next month with Technology Committee. So we'll talk about technology and manufacturing together. Right after the main meeting in June, we'll talk about doing business with Portugal and Spain. So we'll continue covering international subjects as well, in addition to manufacturing practices and technology-related subjects as well. So we are moving forward with more educational content in coming months at our committee. Great. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for your interest. We are looking forward to seeing you at our coming Manufacturing and International Trade Committee meeting at HILA. Thank you and have a nice day. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Great
Bye.
presentation.